It's really a pleasure to be with you today to discuss one of, I think, the most important issues facing our country. Everyone agrees that our broken immigration system is a huge problem, but no one, certainly not in Washington, can agree on how to fix it. And today I would like to talk about how I think we can fix it and how we can do it in a ways that both Democrats and Republicans, or at least enough of them, can sign on and support. You know, it really is ironic that the immigration issue that divides this city is dividing this particular city because so much of Washington was built by immigrants. The street design was drawn up by Pierre-Charles L'Enfant, a French immigrant. The White House was designed by an Irish immigrant named James Hoban, and the U.S. Capitol designed by William Thornton, a British immigrant. And those buildings are not only monuments to our democracy, they are monuments to the contributions that millions of immigrants have made to America throughout its history. But our country's greatest national monument, perhaps, and the American landmark that is really most recognized around the world is not the dome of the Capitol here in Washington or the pillars of the White House or the memorials on the National Mall. It is the Statue of Liberty. Since 1886, 125 years ago this October, Lady Liberty's torch has brought light to the darkest corners of the earth, beckoning here to America's shores, all those, as they say, yearning to breathe free. Yet it's not Lady Liberty's torch or her crown or her broken chains that has inspired so much awe. It is really her location. The power of her symbol lies in the reality of New York City as a gateway, a golden door to the land of opportunity that is the United States of America, and still is the United States of America. We should not forget that. That reality is not just our history, however, it is also our future, and we have to make sure that we can maintain that for our children. We would not have become a global superpower without the contributions of immigrants who built the railroads and the canals and opened up the West, or invented groundbreaking products that have revolutionized global commerce, or who pioneered scientific, engineering, and medical advances that made America the most innovative country in the world. But make no mistake about it, we will not remain a global superpower if we continue to close our doors to the people who want to come here to work hard, start businesses, and pursue the American dream. That American dream cannot survive if we keep telling the dreamers to go elsewhere. It's what I call national suicide, and that's not hyperbole. That every day that we fail to fix our broken immigration laws is a day that we inflict a wound on our economy. And today, we may just this morning have turned away the next Albert Einstein or Sergey Brin. Tomorrow we may turn away the next Levi Strauss or Jerry Yang. And certainly we will be turning away many of the people who, like my grandparents, and no doubt many of yours, came to this country with almost nothing except one thing, a desire to work and work and work and work to build a better life for themselves and certainly, if not for themselves, for their families. This morning, the Partnership for a New American Economy released a report that looks at the impact of immigrants on one major sector of the American economy, and that's Fortune 500 companies. The report finds that more than 40% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by an immigrant or by the child of an immigrant. These immigrant-rooted companies employ more than 10 million people worldwide, which is a population larger than 43 of our states have, and they generate annual revenue of something like $4.2 trillion. To put that number in context, American companies founded by immigrants or their children have revenues that are greater than the gross national product of every country in the world outside of the United States except two, and that's China and Japan. And those are just the Fortune 500 companies. When you look at the economy as a whole, immigrants and their children have been responsible for creating millions of jobs in all 50 states. And the reason is simple. Immigrants are dreamers and risk takers who are driven to succeed because they know that in America, hard work and talent are rewarded like no place else on the globe. And no city has seen the economic power of immigrants more clearly than New York. Historically, immigrants are why New York City became America's economic engine, and in more recent history, they are one of the main reasons why we have rebounded so strongly from the tough times that we faced in the 1970s and the 1980s. Neighborhoods that 25 years ago were abandoned are now thriving, thanks largely to immigrants from the Dominican Republic and Ecuador and Mexico and China and Russia and Ghana, Korea, India, Pakistan, Poland, Egypt, every country in the world. There's no greater force for economic revitalization of depressed neighborhoods than the influx of immigrants. And that's not just true in New York. Immigrants have been critical to economic rebounding in small towns and big cities across America. Take Perry, Iowa, for example. A decade ago, it was facing an economic stagnation caused by years of population decline. But today, thanks to an influx of immigrant labor and immigrant entrepreneurs who have opened businesses, the town's main street is now bustling. Tiny town, immigrants make a difference. The same is true in Lewiston, Maine, a decaying old mill town that has come back to life thanks to an influx of immigrants from Africa. In Atlanta, a big city which has worked hard to become a magnet for well-educated immigrants, the purchasing power of Latinos and Asians has skyrocketed. And across the country, city after city, with the largest increase in immigrant workers, has experienced the fastest economic growth. There is just no question about the numbers. And in New York, immigrants are a big reason why we have weathered the national recession better than the country as a whole. Now, immigration reform could be an economic engine for our entire country, creating good-paying jobs that will speed up our recovery. But both major political parties and both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue say that restoring economic growth is their top priority, and it must be. And yet they don't come to face the one thing that can do the job. Yet today, more than 3 years after our country entered its deepest recession in decades, the single most powerful step that the federal government could take to spur job growth is reforming our broken immigration system. And it, unfortunately, is a casualty of partisan gridlock. Republicans have tended to focus on border control, and understandably so. It is critically important to our nation's security, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with America being in charge of its borders and deciding who comes here. Right now, the selection process is who wants to come here the most. They either overstay their visa or they'll come and run across the border. We should be deciding who comes here. There's nothing wrong with that. Democrats, on the other hand, have tried to focus on comprehensive reform, and that's understandable, too. It's critically important that we do create a pathway to permanent legal status for the 11 million people who have overstayed their visas or come here illegally. But by this point, unfortunately, I think one thing is clear. It is clear that the two sides have reached a stalemate, and they are just talking right past each other. And that leaves us with two choices. Both sides can use the stalemate as a wedge issue to secure political points in 2012, or they can come together and adopt immigration reforms that will spur new companies, strengthen existing ones, and help create jobs for the 13.9 million Americans who are unemployed and looking for work.